Zanele was a kind and hard-working nurse from Gaborone, Botswana. She believed she had a perfect life, a caring husband named Thulani, a beautiful new home, and peace in her heart. Every day, she worked long hours at the hospital, often doing double shift. She didn't complain. All she wanted was to support her husband and help him pay off the loan for their house. She gave her energy, time, and love, always thinking they were building a future together. But while Zanele spent her days saving lives, Thulani was slowly breaking hers. Behind closed doors, he was not the man she thought he was. He didn't value her sacrifices. Instead of being proud of her, he was distant, cold, and hiding secrets. Zanele was too busy and too tired to notice at first. She trusted him completely. She believed they were a team. But Thulani had been playing a different game, one full of lies and betrayal. And while Zanele was giving her all to their dream, Thulani was quietly tearing it apart. One evening, after working a long and tiring 12-hour shift at the hospital, Zanele came home earlier than usual. Her feet ached, her back hurt, and all she wanted was to eat something and lie down. She opened the front door quietly, hoping to surprise Thulani with her early arrival. The house was strangely quiet, but as she stepped into the kitchen, something immediately felt wrong. On the table were 2 coffee mugs. That wasn't unusual, but one of them had lipstick on the rim, a bright red lipstick she didn't wear. Her stomach tightened. A cold feeling rushed through her. She tried to stay calm, telling herself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was a guest, maybe it was nothing, but deep down, she already knew. She walked slowly toward the bedroom. The door wasn't fully closed. It was slightly open, just enough for voices to drift out. Then she heard it. Laughter. A woman's laugh. Familiar. Too familiar. Zanele's heart began to beat faster, her breath shaky. She pushed the door open with a trembling hand, and there they were, Thulani and Lebo, her own best friend from years ago, in her bed, laughing, comfortable, like they belonged there. For a moment, everything went silent. Zanele didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there frozen, as if time had stopped. Thulani saw her and didn't even look shocked. In fact, he smiled, like he had been waiting for this moment. Then he laughed. That laugh broke something inside her. "Now you know," he said coldly. "Maybe if you dressed better, maybe if you weren't always working at the hospital, I wouldn't need someone else." His words were like knives, cutting deeper than anything she had ever felt. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he added, "Go back to your night shifts. That's where you belong." Zanele stood there, speechless. Her heart was shattered, but she didn't let the tears fall. Not yet. She simply turned around and walked away. Her hands were shaking, her mind spinning. But one thing was suddenly clear. She had given her all to someone who didn't deserve even a piece of her love. Thulani had not only betrayed her, but he had done it with the one person she had once trusted like a sister. That night changed everything. It was the moment her old life ended, and a new one was about to begin. One where Zanele would stop pouring herself into people who only took and never gave back. She didn't know how yet, but something inside her said she would rise. This pain would not break her. It would build her. Zanele stood there, still in her scrubs, her hospital ID card hanging around her neck, staring at the 2 people she once trusted most. Her world had just shattered, but there was no scream, no slap, no tears, just silence. Complete, heavy silence. Her body refused to move. Her voice disappeared. She was frozen, like a statue, stuck between disbelief and heartbreak. Thulani didn't even try to cover himself or act surprised. He looked at her with no guilt, no shame. Instead, he laughed. A cold, cruel laugh that made her feel smaller than she ever had. Then he looked her straight in the eyes and said something she would never forget. "Now you know. Maybe if you dressed better, maybe if you weren't always at the hospital, I wouldn't need someone else." Zanele felt the air leave her chest. Those words were worse than the cheating. After everything she had done, all the long nights, double shifts, the sacrifices, the missed meals and sleep, this was what she got. Blamed for his betrayal. It was like he was stabbing her not with a knife, but with every word. And he didn't stop there. He smirked and added, "Go back to your night shifts, Zanele. That's where you belong. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. This was the man she gave her heart to, the man she helped build a life with. Now he was tossing her aside like she meant nothing. And Lebo, her former best friend, just sat there, silent, not even trying to look sorry. It felt like a bad dream, but this was real. The pain was too sharp to be anything else. Still, Zanele didn't cry. She didn't scream or beg. She didn't ask why. She just stood there, broken but proud. Her silence spoke louder than any words could. In that moment, something inside her changed. The woman who always gave and gave, without asking for anything in return, realized her worth. Thulani thought he had crushed her, but he didn't know he had just set her free. Without saying a single word, Zanele turned around and walked out of the room. She didn't look back. She didn't take revenge. She didn't need to. The damage was already done, but it wasn't hers. It was his. She left him with his lies, his insults, and his fake comfort. That night, Zanele didn't sleep. She packed her things quietly, with calm hands and a focused mind. Her heart was broken, but her spirit was waking up. She knew she deserved better, and she was going to find it, not for him, not to prove anything, but for herself. That night, Zanele didn't sleep. Her heart was heavy, but her mind was clear. She knew one thing. She could not stay in that house another minute. Not after what Thulani did. Not after those cruel words. So, while the world outside was quiet and dark, Zanele packed her clothes. She folded her uniforms carefully, picked up her nursing degree, and gathered all her important documents. She didn't take anything that reminded her of him. No photos, no gifts, no memories. She wasn't leaving to cry or hide. She was leaving to start over. A new chapter, a new life. She moved to Mon, a small town far from everything she once called home. She found a tiny back room to rent behind an old woman's house. The room was small, with just enough space for a bed and a desk, but it was hers. There were no lies in that room, no pain, just peace. Zanele threw herself into her work. She volunteered at local clinics, helped out wherever she could, and kept studying. Every day she pushed herself to grow. While others rested, she read. While others complained, she planned. Her dreams became bigger than her pain. Within a few months, she came across a nursing scholarship being offered abroad. It felt impossible, too big, too far, too expensive. But she applied anyway. She wrote her heart into that application. She told them her story, her dreams, and how badly she wanted to help more people. Weeks later, the email came. She got it. A full scholarship to study trauma nursing in South Africa. Zanele cried that day, not from sadness, but from hope. For the first time in a long time, she saw a future full of light. She left Botswana with one suitcase and a heart full of courage. In South Africa, things weren't easy, but Zanele never gave up. She studied hard, trained harder, and made every minute count. In just 18 months, she became a licensed trauma nurse. Not just any nurse, one of the best in her class. She began working at one of the top hospitals, saving lives every day, just like she always dreamed. And the best part? She was now earning 10 times what Thulani ever made. Zanele, the woman who once stood silent in her own home while her heart broke, was now standing tall in scrubs, leading teams, making decisions, and holding lives in her hands. She didn't need revenge. She didn't need to prove anything to Thulani. Her success was the loudest answer. She had turned her pain into power, her heartbreak into healing, and she did it all on her own, with grace, with strength, and with a fire that no one could ever put out again. 2 years passed. Zanele had built a new life in South Africa, strong, peaceful, and full of purpose. She was now a respected trauma nurse in one of the top private hospitals in the country. Her days were long, her work intense, but she loved every minute of it. She had no time to think about the past. She had healed. She had moved on. But life has a way of bringing things full circle. One busy afternoon, the emergency room phone rang. There had been a bad car accident on the highway. A man was being rushed in with internal injuries, broken bones, and a severe head wound. The trauma team prepared the operating room. Zanele, now the lead nurse, took charge like always, calm, focused, and ready. She didn't know who the patient was. She didn't need to. Her job was to save lives. Then the doors opened. The stretcher rolled in, and there he was, Thulani. For a moment, time paused. She looked at him, bruised, bleeding, helpless. The man who once stood over her with a smirk, laughing at her pain, now lay broken on a hospital bed. But Zanele didn't freeze. Her hands didn't shake. Her heart didn't race. She didn't cry. She had already cried enough in the past. This time, she stayed calm, strong and steady. Thulani opened his eyes slowly. When he saw her face, he blinked in shock. He couldn't speak. He didn't know what to say. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked terrified, not because of the pain, but because of her. The last time he saw Zanele, she was walking away in silence, broken-hearted. Now she stood over him in a clean white coat, confident and unshaken. Zanele leaned in close, her voice soft but firm. "The man who laughed at my pain," she said, "now lies in my hands." She didn't say more. She didn't need to. Those words were enough. Then she turned to the team and began the surgery. Her movements were fast, skilled, and professional. She did everything by the book. There was no anger in her actions, only purpose. Her job was to save him, and she did. She treated him like any other patient, even though he was the man who once crushed her soul. When the surgery was done, Zanele stepped out of the room without looking back. She didn't wait for thanks. She didn't need his words. She didn't need anything from him anymore. Her silence said everything. Thulani lay there, weak and speechless. He was alive because of the woman he had once betrayed. The woman he said was just a nurse. The same woman he laughed at now walked with pride, strength and dignity. He couldn't stop thinking about her. He would never forget her face, not because of pain, but because of how she rose, quietly, powerfully, and with grace. He never understood until it was too late. A few weeks after the surgery, something unexpected happened. A video started spreading all over social media, but it wasn't from the hospital or the night Zanele saved Thulani. It was from an award ceremony. Zanele stood on stage in her uniform, holding a medal. She had been honoured for saving over 200 lives in conflict zones. Her voice was calm and kind as she gave her speech, thanking her team and encouraging young girls to believe in themselves. People from all over the country watched the video. They were touched by her story, her strength, and her heart. The woman who was once mocked for caring too much was now being celebrated as a national hero. Zanele didn't post the video. She didn't need to. The world saw her now, not as the nurse who was cheated on, but as the nurse who rose, who healed others even after being hurt herself. Her quiet strength inspired thousands. Newspapers wrote about her. TV shows invited her. Everyone wanted to know the woman who turned pain into purpose. And Thulani, he watched the video too. Limping through his house, he scrolled through old pictures of Zanele, her smile, her eyes, the woman he once took for granted. But now he had no words, no laughter, only silence, still speechless.